Hey guys, hope my stuff is working. I think it is. I'm gonna go forward with it anyway. But this is a Maya Basics tutorial for any of you who need to or want to learn the basics of Maya. And if you're watching this video, I assume you already have Maya downloaded on your computer. But if you don't, you can go up to the search up the Autodesk website, and if you are a student, you can sign in with a student account and you can get a free trial for Maya for about 4 years last time I checked. I don't know if they've changed it since then, but I've been able to get Maya on my computer, which is really nice. I have Maya 2017. First, I got so used to 2016 version of Maya, where that had like the mental ray renderer or whatever. But then I tried Maya 2017, and it's new Arnold renderer. Man, Arnold is powerful. But yeah, I like 2017 better. But just make sure you try and get the most updated version when you download it. Alright, let's see. So, basics. This is your viewport. This big square is where all the magic happens. Well, actually the magic happens in the render view, but this is where you build stuff for the render view. Let's see. These are your sub menus. Here you've got curves, polygons, sculpting, reading, animation, rendering, things like that, and you can just go look through them, and those are just kind of your shelf abilities, tabs, things, whatever you can do. I usually use the polygons thing because I do a lot of modeling, and that's what the polygons tab is for. You can also look through these menus up top, and you can find a way to edit your model and whatnot. I will get to that later on how to edit your model, but these are the main menus. Hello. So you've got modeling. I'm in modeling. I use modeling a lot. Then there's rigging. Rigging is nasty business. And then there's animation and effects and rendering, and I don't even know what that is. I've never touched it, but it says customize, so I'm assuming you can just kind of make your own little menu. But I usually stick to the modeling menu. But if your display looks different and these up here or these here don't look right, like the option you're looking for isn't there, just make sure you're in the right menu over here. And there you go. And you have all the stuff that you're familiar with, the stuff that you're supposed to be working on at the moment. Alright, there's file, of course, with every program. New, open, save, save as. Increment and save is kind of nice with Maya because you get a lot of files that are super big, and if you just save the same scene over and over again, if that one file corrupts, you can't use that file again. So what increment save does is it saves another version, and it'll add a 0001 or 0002 after it, and it'll save these different versions, and then when you look through your files you can just open up the latest version of your file, which is nice because Maya likes to crash. That's a big thing. Maya likes to crash, and you need to save early, save often, make sure that Maya does not crash on you and corrupt your file. And you save, increment and save, and save lots of versions. Let's see. Alright, so this is the viewport. These are your toolbars. This is your attribute editor. If you click over here, and then if you go up here, right here, this is your channel box / layer editor. Channel box will come in handy later, but these layers, I didn't learn this until later. They really help you organize your scene. Once you've got things in there, then you can set different objects to different layers and whatnot. but we'll use that later. I usually stick with the attribute editor over here. Alright, so viewport. How do you move around? How do you look around? Kind of stuff. Well, first, I'm going to rotate, so you hold Alt on your keyboard. Hold Alt on your keyboard, and then left click drag. And then you can rotate around your view wherever you want it to. And if you make an object, this is really handy to rotate around the view. I just did a little zoom. I'll show that in a second. But and then there's the grid. There's this grid that helps you know what's right, left, up, down, whatnot. So yeah, remember Alt, left click, and drag. I use this a lot. Modelers use this a lot to get a good view of all sides of their model. Let's see. So next we have zoom. Hold Alt again, and this time right click drag. Dragging right will zoom in, dragging left will zoom out. Okay, so remember, Alt, left click drag is rotate, right click drag is zoom. Now, something that I found very useful is a third thing you can do with your viewport. Hold Alt again. Just remember Alt is your little changing view key. Hold Alt and press the middle click. Not press it, hold it. Hold the middle click and drag. And this is called panning your view. So if you're really zoomed in and you want your view to be focused somewhere else, like your camera isn't centered on something, you can change your view and you can pan it to a different center. And then I'll show you how to center based on selection later, center your camera. So that's the viewport. Alt. If you're a Maya user, you hold Alt a lot. You hold Alt, you drag around, you zoom and pan. Once again, left click, right click, or left click hold, right click hold, and middle click hold and drag. So there's that. Now let's create something. In the Polygons tab, they've got a list of just kind of basic, what do you call them, templates that you can use in this shelf here. You can also come up here and select Create and go to Polygon Primitives, and you've got some nice options there. But usually every model starts with some sort of simple shape, so just think of the model you're trying to do and start with that shape that you think would best create what you're looking to build. Let's create a cube. So there's a cube in the middle of our viewport, in the middle of our grid, whatnot. So see that those little green lines around, and that means it's selected. And this is your selection button. If you select off of it, the green lines will go away. It means it's not selected. So click on it, selected, and now I want to show you something that's kind of interesting. So what if your camera is like really far away, and you're like, your view is really off, and you're having trouble, like, why can't I see my object just normally? Select the object if you can, or if it's already selected, and press F on your keyboard. Press F on your keyboard, and that will automatically center your view to your object, which I find really handy when I'm making large models and stuff. So selection. This is your basic selection right here. You can also drag select. You can also shift select if you have multiple objects. Let's just make this over here. So you have multiple objects, hold shift, you can select more than one object, and you can continue selecting more objects as long as you hold shift. And then if you want to deselect a certain object, press Control and hold Control while you click that, and it'll deselect that. But whatever. But I just used a little move tool, if you saw. I'll get to that later, but right now we're in selection. This is object selection. You know you're in object selection because your selection will have a green outline around it. Now, that's Q. If you press Q on your keyboard, that's your basic selection tool, little arrow key. That's your Q button. Now just remember Q, W, E, R. They're all four right next to each other on your keyboard. They're also here. Hang on. Yeah, they're here. This one, this one, this one, and this one. Q, W, E, R. Now let me tell you what each one does. Q is your basic selection, as I said. Now W. Click W on your keyboard. Make sure you have your thing selected. And once you click W, you get this little thing right here that will, it's called a transformer. Yeah, little transformers. No. But it's a little thing here that shows the actually I'm not sure which is which, but that's the y-axis. That must be the x-axis. I'm assuming that's the z-axis. That's what the z-axis is. You usually see in like math, you see a y and x-axis. That's because you're on a 2D plane. In Maya, it is a 3D plane, so you have a z-axis that brings everything outward in 3D. That's why it says 3D, because it's 3 dimensions, y, x, and z. But this is W, your transform, or translate, deformer, transformer, whatever it's called. But this is basically what helps you move your stuff around. And if you click a certain arrow, it'll move along that arrow, which is nice. And if you click the middle thing right here, you can move it according to your camera, which is kind of cool. It's unpredictable, but it's kind of cool. See these little squares? You'll see these on all the deformers. This will move along the X and Y plane. It'll move along the plane. It won't move this way or that way. It'll move along the plane, which is really useful, I've found. The thing I'm going to show you is if you click and hold the X key on your keyboard. Just click and hold it. Don't click it, hold it. But if you see your little square here, it'll turn into a circle. What that does is it snaps your object to the grid. So if you move it, and you can center it along your grid here. That's this big thing with the squares all over it. But if you've got it like way off center, whatnot, and you're trying to get it back to the very center of your scene, hold X, move the middle point, and just drag it to the center, and it snaps right to the center. So that's F right there, just under my view. But that's the translate deformer. Now that's W. We've gone through Q and W. Now E. Click E on your keyboard. Don't hold it, just click it. And that is your rotate deformer. And you can rotate your object along certain axes, which is nice. Or you can just rotate free, if you just grab in the middle kind of somewhere. That's a little unpredictable. Or you can rotate according to your camera on this outer rim right here. So it just rotates according to where your camera is viewing it. But yeah, that's rotate. That's useful at times. Now, so we've gone through Q, W, E. Now click R on your keyboard and you show this up. You can also click these if you want, but and it'll tell you the little hotkey for your keyboard. But I use Q, W, E, R all the time. I'm a hotkey kind of person. But R is your scale. What that means is it will resize whatever you've got selected. So if you click this middle one and drag it right and left, you can resize it, the entire thing. Just take the entire thing and resize it however much you want. Now you've got all these side ones too, and it'll go along those specific axes. So if you want to scale along, say, the x-axis, it'll scale only along the x-axis, and you got yourself a rectangular prism there. Scale along the y-axis and z. Now what's really fun is if you want to scale along two axes, that's what this little square is for. So you've got this, but you don't want to scale this. You just want to scale that way and that way. So you can click those little squares and it'll go only along those along that plane, excuse me. But that's really, really nifty. So I think I got all of that. But remember, Q, W, E, R, those are the most basic deforming. Those are the most basic tools you use in Maya. Now let's see. Let's go to selection. So this is object selection. I'm going to hit Q again, so I just go to my basic selection tool. But that's your object selection. That's the green one. Now, to go to another type of selection, I don't know any other way, but this is the way I learned it. Click and hold your right click. Hello. Click and hold your right click and you'll see this menu pull up right here. And you'll see this big box of options and this and whatnot, and you're like, what is this? What is all this? This is really confusing. Don't be confused. What you're looking for here is vertex face and or vertex face edge and edge. So here's object mode. That's just the basic. If you're in any other selection, you can go right click and drag up to object mode and release, and you can, that's how you select your selection. Select your selection. Now let's go to face selection. Here is face right here on the bottom, and automatically this will kind of turn blue. I've got soft selection on, hang on. It'll kind of turn blue, and whatever you hover over, whichever face, it will highlight that face, and you can select certain faces. Now, whatever component, you can do this with objects, you can do this with simple faces, you can select edges and vertices, but you can deform them any way you want. You can translate, rotate, and scale. This is how I do a lot of my modeling. And it's really fun sometimes because you can really deform little objects and things like that. Let's see. Let's scale it. There we go. Have a fun little object. And just like every other program, you hit Control-Z and keep hitting Control-Z to go back. But yeah, there's face selection. Now let's go to edge selection. Right click and drag. Right click, hold and drag. Go to, up here is your edge selection, and you can select your edges. Oh, I forgot to mention, let's go back to face. Like I said before, you can shift select. If you want your deformer out of the way, just click Q, like I said before. That's the reason you would want you to click Q, is to get your deformer out of the way so you can select things better. But hold shift and you can select multiple things. Shift, 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 shift. So say I wanted to deselect just this face and that face. Hold Control, do that. Hold Control and click that, and you have just that. So that's selection, and you can do this with edge and vertex selection as well. Now let's go up to edge again. Right click, drag up to edge and release. Now you've got this, and you can select these edges of whatever you're building. Now if you want to select, like I said, shift, hold shift if you want to select more edges. But something I've noticed kind of cool about edge selection, and this only works with edge here, hang on, pull something else up. You don't have to do this, don't worry, but if you're trying to work and if you're trying to work with like complicated rims, and you've got good topology, and you've got your edges wrap around your object like this. What you can do, and you want to select all of those, just the entire thing, wrap all the way around, just that entire edge loop is what it's called, an edge loop. You double click the edge, and you've got yourself an edge loop. Under my view element selection with F, and so that's really fun. And it selects whatever Maya recognizes as an edge loop, and I use that a lot. Oh, it does work. I use that a lot. But yeah, that's something fun when you get to it. You can use with your edge loops. F. Now let's go to Vertex Selection on the left. Right click, drag, Vertex. Now you can select single vertices. Those are the little dots, the points that make up, that connect the edges, and the edges are what connect to form faces. But the individual vertices are probably the most tedious part to model, because if you've got like a super high poly model, you don't want to go in and edit a ton of vertices. Just tedious. Edit, move one, go to the next, move one, go to the next, move it, go to the next, kind of thing. This is actually pretty low poly. I mean, it's got 6 polygons. But something let's do, I'm going to click smooth up here. This is kind of fun. But it adds a lot. Hello? I'm going to click it again, but it adds a lot of vertices. So say, and I'm going to show you something with Vertex Selection. So say you want to edit the vertices, but there are a ton of vertices on here, and you don't want to go to each individual one and edit each individual one, which I do sometimes because I'm tedious. And I probably shouldn't, because it saves a lot of time if I don't. But if you want to edit, if you just kind of want to deform it, click B on your keyboard, B, and that's soft selection mode. Now you'll get this kind of color scheme, and what it's doing is it's setting up a radius and partially selecting the vertices around it. And the yellow are the most affected, and as it goes down, it goes into oranges and down into dark red, and dark red is the least affected while yellow is the most affected. So what this does is, once you move that, it kind of does a smooth little thing. So it moves these slightly less and this the most. That's soft selection. That's fun. You can also do that with face and edge selection. But yeah, that's that. That's what I use a lot when I'm making what do you call it? Organic shapes in Maya. Alright, let's go back. Alright, I think that's it for now. Oh, actually, I forgot something else. To kind of start you off, once you've got, all the selections, you've got face, edge, vertex, object mode. Once you know all the deformers, W, E, R, translate, rotate, and scale, and you kind of know generally where things are, you want to start building stuff. So, say I wanted to build a sword, something, and you're wondering how exactly do I go about that. I'm going to show you something that I use a lot. You can press, it works best when you can do it to any selection, but it really works best with face selection. You can press Control E, or you can go up here, edit mesh. I might be in the wrong menu. Nope, extrude. Extrude, that's what we're looking for. And I use this a lot. Extrude, you don't really see anything done to it except it's got this weird thing over here and you're not sure what happens. What it does is it takes that face and it does that, basically. You just need to move it out. It stays right there at first, but you need to move it out so that you can put it where you want it to be. And if you don't what this is doing is it's trying to accustom the deformer to the face itself. So the Y is different now for that singular face. And if you just want the deformer to go back, reset to the grid, X, Y, and Z axis, you click this little thing up here, this weird little, looks like an Xbox power button almost. And now you can just move it along the X axis. I use that a lot. But then if you want to rotate the extrusion, click the little circle and it'll show up with all these rotate abilities. Or if you want to, well, there's rotate, or if you want to scale, it's the little boxes on the sides. Nope, that didn't work. Nope, that didn't work either. But there you go. And it's really fun because you can do a lot of different things with just simple selections, and you can really mold your model. Let's make a little sword. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to start building this little sword and try to remember what kind of things I talked about. So just remember, extrude. You can press Control E, or you can go up here and extrude. But yeah, it's also right there apparently on your in your polygons menu. So I'm gonna extrude this. Actually, I'm gonna bring this one out here. And that's another thing you wanna make sure when you're building. You want to keep your polygons. You don't want to make like tons and tons of polygons. So there are some people that are like, okay, I want to make this that long, and they just extrude it, and they're like, maybe they just make a bunch of polygons or whatever. But I've seen young modelers that add so many polygons to their thing, and it's better if you have lower polygons, unless you're trying to make something really complex. But you always want to go for the lowest amount of polygons possible, because if you get something really complex and you have tons of extra polygons you don't even need, Maya is going to not like you and crash. But that's something you always want to keep in mind when you're modeling. So, nope, R, that's my scale. Let's scale this. See, things like this. Okay, so a young modeler could do this if they want to create the point to their sword, and this is something I do. I just bring it in with the scale like that. I don't bring it in like this because then it creates a weird point like this. I just want it, click this blue one, and I just do this. Now you've got two polygons. Another way you could do this, you've got more polygons. Let's see. You had 1, 2, 3, 4 polygons right there. 5, including this big one here. Now you just created 1, 2, 3, 4 more. Now what you could do, instead of that, I'm going to go back quite a bit. It might take me a little bit. So what you could do is something that I use. Go up here, multi-cut tool, next to reduce, next to extrude, multi-cut. I use this a lot as well. Hold shift if you want to go into the, what it does is it cuts your surfaces for you. It makes lines in the polygons. So, and you go based off of vertices or edges, and you can whatnot. But if you want to go straight in the middle of an edge, which is what I'm doing here, hold shift and it'll snap to the middle, and then I snap to the bottom of this one, and you've created another edge right there. And now you just drag that edge out this way. Now you only have 2 extra instead of 4 extra, but that's a little, but there are just so many ways that you can really lower your poly count in the end. Alright, let's see. This is a very, very simple sword. But I'm going to go into face selection, and I'm going to make the hilt here. I'm going to extrude this, Control E, and click W, and I'm going to bring this out like that. I probably should have done this before I before I brought up the sword. But oh, okay, here's another thing that's really useful. So click on your object and double click your select tool up here, top left, double click the select tool, and it'll bring up this tool settings menu unless you already have it up. But once you have this, it's not going to work on all the others, on some of the others at least. But go to this Symmetry Settings tab and click Object X, or whatever you're trying to use symmetry across. But what it'll do, it'll just basically mirror your actions on the other side of, okay, that didn't work, on the other side of your model. It must be Object Z. Oh yeah, I'm working in Z-axis, that's interesting. It'll mirror it, so you've got this. So if you say, I'm selecting this face, and you press Ctrl E, your little extrude tool, and you bring it out, it does the same thing on the other side, which is really useful when you're modeling. But that's a little thing that I use a lot. I'm bring this in. Make it more like this. I'm going to press Ctrl E again, and then I always click W after because I don't like the extrude version of the deformers. I'll bring this out, extrude again, and I'm gonna do this. You can probably slow the video if you ever need help, but just remember all the little tricks that I taught you and look at what I'm doing. Make sure you look at that and you kind of go, oh, I know what that is, oh, I know what that is, and you use it yourself. Over time, in the end, the best thing possible is just experience. It's just playing around with the software. That's really the best way to get used to it. Some people say, I'll just use a video and I'll know everything. Nope, it doesn't work that way, because it's just experience is so good. If you don't actually play with it, you can watch as many videos as you want. If you don't actually play with the software, you're not really gonna learn much. But you just play around with different options in Maya, and don't be afraid to try different options. Just play around, say, ooh, what does that do? What does that do? What does that do? And you can really, because there are 1,000 ways to do everything in Maya, and you want to find all the most efficient ways. So you just look through, looking for the most efficient ways to do anything. Let's bring this out. I'm gonna, and this is a little trick that I do sometimes. If I want to scale this down on this axis, what happens is this gets let to be less of a point. Now I could come in and move these vertices if I want it to be a perfect hexagon. I could come in and move these vertices, but one thing that I like to do sometimes is I'll select vertex from this point and I'll drag select, and I'll have all these vertices selected. Now I just move these on one side and I bring them close together, and it'll automatically do it on the other side because I have the symmetry settings on. So that's fun. Let me make this handle, that is a really thin handle now that I think about it. Oh shoot. Oh no. That doesn't work in the end. So, if that you have trouble and you don't want to go back, Control Z all the way, you can select all the faces. Just those faces and drag select. I use drag select a lot. And you can make sure you use the little square, and you can resize it if you want. Now I'm actually going to resize some other things too. In fact, almost the entire thing, pretty much the entire thing. I'm going to resize it up because this handle does not have enough space to be bigger without coming above this. I'm going to bring this back down and bring it out. There we go. Now we've got ourselves a sword handle. And I'm going to bring this out with an extrusion. Clicking R, going to scale, and then I'm going to hit E, Control E to do another extrusion. R, scale down, and there we go. We've got this basic modeling for a kind of interesting sword. Now, I'm thinking of adding, oh, this is a little fun thing to do. I'm thinking of adding edges, because it looks like a wooden cutout sword thing. I'm trying to add edges now. One thing you can do to your model, if Maya recognizes that there's an entire edge loop all the way around, it might get a little odd around here, but like I was talking about earlier with edge loops, if Maya can recognize an edge loop, it can also make one from empty polygons. So what you can do is once you get your little cutting tool that I showed you earlier up here right next to the extrude, and I believe that's reduce polygons, come here, hold shift, hang on, hold control, and it'll start cutting out an edge loop. I think if you hold shift as well, you can snap it. I'm going to snap it to the middle. So what that did is it created a line right here. So I've created an edge loop here. Now remember, it is control, and it'll create edge loops, and you can create as many edge loops as you want, and that's very, very useful if you have good topology. Maya will recognize those edge loops and go make all these edge loops all the way around until it stops and finds something that it's not sure what to do about, and it'll just stop there, which I'm okay with. At this point, I just want this middle line, this middle edge loop. There we go. Now that we've got that there, we've got two sections, two halves to this blade. I'm actually going to take all, I'm going to face selection, take all that, and I'm going to downsize it along the y-axis. And now, what I'm going to do is come in here and select both of these. Another thing you could do there is go into go into your symmetry settings and double click your basic select tool, and you could do object Y, which would replicate your actions across the y-axis of an object. But it's selecting two faces, so I'm not going to bother because I don't want to have to change it later. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to scale inward like that. Now I don't want to scale this way because the end of the sword looks nice like that, but this part is looking odd. So I'm not going to do that. What I decided to do was scale along this axis, and in the end I'm going to take these vertices. I'm just going to take this one and this one, make sure you get both sides, and I'm going to bring these in. And there you go. No harm done. I'm actually going to take these as well. Hope it didn't select anything I didn't want it to. And there we go. You've got yourself a sword. Kinda cool, huh? So, sometimes another thing, getting close to the end of the video here, another thing you'll notice is sometimes you get these smooth surfaces, and you're like, why are they smooth? I don't want them to be smooth. Because this is a blade. If you get a smooth blade, it's going to do nothing. It's just bludgeoning damage. But if you click on your model and you go up to Mesh Display, I repeat, up in your menu, Mesh Display, right next to Mesh Tools and Curves. Mesh Display, click on that, go down to Hardened Edge. Now what that does is it takes the entire model and it hardens all of the polygonal edges that were soft. Now you could reverse that and make it all soft too if you're trying to make an organic shape, which is sometimes something that you need. Let me show you that. No, I just clicked harden. There we go, soften. Woo, we got this little soft looking sword. I don't want a soft looking sword. So you've got hardened edge and you've got that, and so there's that. I'm going to bring this end of the blade out a little farther. But yeah, there's our little basic sword. Cool, kind of cool, huh? And you can do all that. That all started from a cube. Just think about that. It all started from a cube. If you're a perfectionist that likes things to be fun, that just can't ever be satisfied with how it looks, you keep wanting to edit it and whatnot, but there needs to be a point in time where things are good enough, and you need to just accept that. But yeah, there's our little sword. I'm gonna rotate it, swing it around. That doesn't really work. But yeah, alright, so that's the end of this video. Just some Maya basics and some modeling, and just kind of showing you what you can do with your selections abilities, your deform abilities, and some of these abilities up here. Extrude I use a lot, and the cutting tool I use a lot. So that's basic Maya modeling. Just a basic video here. And yeah, I think that's it. Alright, see you guys.